Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to PSGL PlayStation F3 Season 41. It's time for round 8 of the season, and it's the Mexican Grand Prix. After a 2 weeks break due to the holidays, we finally return to continue this championship fight, and we have got almost a full grid tonight here at Mexico, at a soaking wet qualifying at least. We will not know what the weather is like for the race, but by the looks of it, it is going to be a wet qualifying, so that is going to make things interesting already. But before we kick off this qualifying session, let's take a quick look at the Drivers' Championship. After the previous 7 races, and it was 3 weeks ago at Silverstone where we saw Maiko take his maiden win of the season, and that boosted him up into the championship lead because his rivals, Melbourne and Milan DLC, both picked up a 10-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane there at Silverstone, which costed them hugely, and in the end only managed to finish P3 and P4 both behind Levi, who got his first podium of the season as well with a great second place for the RB team. But now it's Maiko then in the lead of the championship, 3 points ahead of Milan DLC, and now 17 points ahead of Melbourne in the McLaren. Is now a full race win behind a driver who has looked so strong since the beginning of the season. But unfortunately, these last 2 results, a 12th place at Spain due to an incident on the opening lap, have costed him dearly in the championship fight. But let's see what he will be able to do tonight. Can he bounce back and put himself back into that championship fight for these final 4 races of the season? But here we are then in qualifying, full wet conditions. Now usually on this game, full wet conditions don't necessarily mean that the full wet tire is the quickest. We often see drivers picking the intermediate rather than the full wet, but it looks like some of the drivers are on the full wets at least to start their flying laps. We are on board with Shiny Diamond in the RB, and it's the other RB of Levi, who got his podium 3 weeks ago, who is not racing tonight. Milan DLCS though, of course, he's in the championship fight, he will be racing, and he is on the intermediate. So that's an example. We can look at the tires right now, and you can see that it's quite mixed between all of these drivers. But the first to complete their flying lap, we'll have a look as we see one of the Ferraris going in towards third one. It's Alamico and the Aston Martin who's making his way out of the triangle there, and now going towards the SS, which is really quite tricky in these conditions. So you can see him struggling for grip. He's on the full wets though, for his banker lap at least, but you see how much he is struggling with the turn in. A bit of a moment on the exit there as well. But yeah, that is how difficult it is right now, and you have to keep it within white lines as well, which are barely visible in these conditions. But now going through the stadium section, we'll find out what his lap time is going to be. 1 corner remaining, and in the wet, this tracking zone can be very, very tricky indeed. The first lap time on the board is going to be a 1:32.896, which for sure will be beaten. And as it's the Ferrari of Akito who's gone on to second place, who making his debut tonight in F3. Junkie Angle's gone quickest. He's on the intermediates, 2/10 ahead of the Aston Martin. And now we'll finally see some more lap times on the board. Shiny Diamond in P4 on those full wet tires. Right behind him was Melvin starting his flying lap. We'll keep an eye out on what he will be able to do. Of course, the Maiko as well, as Mighty Wombat goes quickest by 0.4 of a second ahead of Junkie Angle. And Francesco in the Ferrari in P3 also on the full wets. The Maiko is currently making his way down the start-finish straight, so he and Melbourne both on the lap. Milan DLC is at the end of his flying lap, going in towards the final sector, and seems to have gotten a purple middle sector, but then goes a little bit too wide there, going in towards that final sector, in towards turn 12, and unfortunately invalidates his lap time. We want to know where that lap time would have put him, but he has to try again in, well, right now as he's going to start this lap. Let's see what it would have been at 31.6, so that would have been provisional pole position, but unfortunately not quite for the RB driver Melbourne then, as he makes his way through the SS. Always a contender for pole position, has been on pole position multiple times so far this season, and can he make another one as Jules Payton in the Mercedes goes quickest, 30.8. That's 1.4 seconds ahead of Mighty Wombat, as Melbourne are flirting with track limits. Also coming out of turn 12, where we saw Milan Diossi pick up his invalidation, but the McLaren driver was just within those white lines, and he will be able to complete this lap as he comes out of the final corner. Turns 16 and 17, sliding across the finish line to go quickest on the intermediates with a 30.168, 7/10 quicker. And I think this is going to be the theme of this qualifying session. The track is just going to improve throughout this session, so these lap times will get quicker and quicker. And in the meantime, the Maiko's going to be 3 with a 31.5, and that is a full 1.4 seconds behind the McLaren driver at the moment. Looking quite handy in these conditions, it must be said. Same can't be said there about Michael. He had a big moment coming out of the final sector. Big thanks to as he goes across the line, also has invalidated, but a 30.7 is actually quite a decent lap time and would have put him on the front row if he hadn't invalidated. What about Milan Diossi, who invalidated his first lap time, his second one, a 32.5 only, putting him in P9 and a good 2 seconds away from Melvin on provisional pole position at the moment, as Ryan in the second McLaren also invalidating, as Beton now goes quickest, and he's the first one to go into the 29s, and that on a set of full wets. Very impressive indeed for the Mercedes driver, also making his debut I think tonight in DSF3, so good to see him around here at Mexico. So a few drivers remain to set a lap time. It is Ryan, Schlav and Moikoli, as the other kick-sauber of KTRDN has just gone into 7th place with a 32.1. We'll wait and see what this second driver can do for kick-saubers. Only got 1 point this season so far, which was at the Spanish Grand Prix, but he's only participated in 3 races so far. And that is an RB rejoining the track quite dangerously. I wonder who that was. It was Shiny Diamond there, coming from the runoff, but don't think he impeded the kick-sauber there of Moikoli, who is around the final corner, but once again finds himself invalidating. Mighty Wombat going P3 with a 30.2. But like I said, these lap times will only get quicker, and it's going to be about those final few laps at the very end of the session, where you already know what the grid is going to be like. As Milan Diossi goes quickest now with a 129.707 and almost 3/10 ahead of anyone else, but he is on the intermediates, and the question is, when are these full wet runners going to make the decision to switch over to the intermediates? Because you have to get used to those tires as well for a few laps, so it would be handy to do at least a couple laps on the intermediates. As Ryan now, with his first lap time, immediately goes to the top, 29.6, only 16 thousandths of a second, but putting his McLaren at the top. Melvin in pit lane at the moment, as the Grandada there goes P5 in the Alpine, as Moikoli on another attempt in the kick-sauber. Let's see, can he keep it within the white lines? That is the real question. Luke goes quickest now in the Red Bull, 29.4, 4.3, and immediately gets replaced there by the Maiko with a 29.3. So we're already nearing a 128. But I reckon it's going to be a lot quicker towards the end of the session. Still 8.5 minutes remaining here in qualifying. So plenty of improvements to be found. As Moikoli finally gets a lap time on the board. P15 for him though, a 31.5. We've seen him do a 30.7 earlier. So he definitely can go quicker. But it does feel like this lap time was more of a safe lap time after he validated his first 2 runs. Akito in the Ferrari down in P17 on a 133. Would like to get a little bit quicker than that, which he's attempting to do right now, as he ends the second sector with 2 seconds improvement going into the stadium section. As Betan once again going quicker, 29.2, and still on those full wets. Really impressive stuff so far, as the closest full wet runner is Alameco in P12 on a 31.1, as Jungi Angle, the other Mercedes, goes quickest to a 29.1, as Lakita goes to P10. So for a brief moment it's a Mercedes front row lockout, with Jungi Angle finding himself at the very top. Milan Diossi up by 0.3 of a second through the middle sector. Let's see if he finds some more as he goes towards the final sector, and that is Paco and Williams going to a 29.0. Milan is up by 1.2 seconds, so this definitely will be a 28. There is the first 28, and it's from Mighty Wombat in the Haas, and there is Moikeli with a 28.2, half a second quicker, and putting himself at the top in the kick Sauber. But it will be fun to see where he will be at the end of the session, as Milan is going to go into the pit lane, which is surprising to see. 6 minutes and 40 seconds remaining in qualifying, and he decides to pull into pit lane rather than finish this lap, which would have been probably a professional pole position lap time. For those who are wondering why it is just me tonight, it's because my usual co-commentator, Jamie, unfortunately ill, which means he will not be able to make it tonight. Do wish him the best right now, and hopefully have him back next week for round 9. As Ryan, in the meantime, he's gone quickest, 28.1. But you really don't know where that lap time will put you in 5.5 minutes time, when the checkered flag falls, as Noxie in the Aston Martin P3 with a 28.6, and the Maiko then 28.1 as well, only a few hundreds in it. But a brief moment ago I said we're getting close to the 28, now we're already getting close to the 27, so that is just how quickly this track is improving with these weather conditions. And the question is also, of course, will it rain during the race? Because if it doesn't, then the majority of the drivers are running dry setups. But that is something we will find out after qualifying. Kingsman down in P18 in the Williams with a 146, but he's definitely got to improve on that as he comes across the line to go P4 with a 28.6. And now Schlaaf in the Red Bull remains the only driver to not set a lap time, but it could be because he possibly has a qualifying ban. Not too sure about that, but he has been involved in some incidents in the last couple of races. There is Melvin with a 26.7. So what an improvement that is. 1.4 seconds ahead of the Maiko, completely skipping this 127s and going straight into the 126s. Great lap time indeed. When he needs it. I said he's been on pole multiple times this season, but it was only once, in fact, and it was at the Austrian Grand Prix. So this could be his second pole position. As KDRDN, in the meantime, he's gone into the front row with a 28.0. But quite a substantial gap between himself and the McLaren out in front. Only a few minutes remaining here in qualifying. And it's going to be about who is going to start their flying lap the last. Who is going to get the best track ahead of him going in towards that final lap. As Alameko pulling into the pit lane was all for an improvement, but going for a brand new set of intermediates for the final runs, as Luke, in the meantime, in the white Red Bull, has gone to second place and breaks into the 27th. But still 1.2 seconds away from Melvin. Two Ferraris in 7th and 8th, and it is Francesco starting a flying lap with 2.5 minutes to go. It is going to get very busy on track very soon. As the Ferrari out of sector 1. Milan Diossi goes quickest, 26.3 and 4 tenths ahead of Melvin. Really shows that how important it will be to start your flying lap, your final flying lap, as late as possible, with the track ramping up towards the end of the session. As the Ferrari driver through the second sector is up by 0.6 of a second, which could put himself in P3 for the time being. But of course, everyone around him will try and improve. Just ahead of him is Jungi Angle and the Mercedes, who were on the front row a few minutes ago, 16 and 17, but Jungi Angle changing that with P3 with a 27.2. And Francesco just behind, 10th of a second, and putting his Ferrari in P4. Paco in the Williams will improve and goes to P5. And we'll be able to do another lap, but we'll keep an eye on the time. It's 1 minute to go, so ideally you want to start a lap when the timer hits 0, because then you will have the best possible track conditions. As Schlaf has gone second place in the Red Bull with a 26.5, finally finds himself out on track, and immediately with a great lap time. He has had quite a difficult season so far. Started off very strong with 2 P6 finishes in the opening 2 rounds, then P9 in round 3 at Austin, but since then has not scored any points. In fact, hasn't finished any races. He didn't race at Monaco and Austria, and he retired in the previous 2 races at Spain and Silverstone, but looking to bounce back from that, and is doing quite well indeed in qualifying, at least, as Baton in the Williams and the Mercedes has gone second with a 26.53 seconds are on the clock. The Grandada will not make it to the line. He's out and in P17. Francesco will not make it to the line either. He's in P6 as Noxie down in P19. Mighty Wombat has improved to P17. Next to take the flag will be Paco in the Williams, and it's gonna go to P4. And then it is the Kick Sauber of KDRDN down in P10 at the moment and improves to P6. But the question is, where are the big runners? Where will they be? Will they be? Goodness me, as Shiny Diamond has retired from the session. Milan DLC has finished, but he's not able to improve and stays on a 26.3. What is Melvin able to do? He's up by 2.5 tenths of a second. The Baiko improves to P3 only. He's not able to take away pole position from Milan DLC. So I think the only man at the moment who can really deny pole position for Milan DLC, as Petan goes quickest, 26.3 as well, by a few hundredths of a second. But it is 6 tenths improvement for Melvin in the second sector. He just needs to finish this lap cleanly, and pole position will be his around Mexico. Just ahead it is Alamico finishing a lap time as well, but it looks clean so far for Melvin, who's coming across the line. And will it be pole position? Yes, it is 25.5, and it's almost 8 tenths of a second for Melvin as he snatches away pole position here at Mexico with a brilliant lap time, his second pole position of the season, and a great way to bounce back from the previous 2 races. The McLaren driver takes pole here at Mexico by 7.5 tenths ahead of the Mercedes of Baton, and Milan DLC lining up in P3 ahead of the Maiko. So the top 3 in the championship starting inside the top 4. What a great qualifying for Schlaf as well. Only 1 lap and he's in P5. Then it's Paco in P6, Junkie Angle in 7th, Ryan in 8th, KDRN in P9, Alameco P10, then Moikali, Luke, Francesco, Mighty Wombat, Kingsman, Lakita, Shiny Diamond, the Grandada, and Noxie lining up in P19, closing the grid. But that sure was an interesting qualifying session. But now it is time to move on to the main event. And very soon we will find out what the track conditions will be. And there is your answer, because it is clear skies ahead. So completely different track conditions. So all the lap times you just saw in qualifying will not matter at all, because the pace in the wet is so different compared to the pace in the dry. So this will shape up to be a very interesting race, to say the least. And thank you, Jamie, for the kind words. And I'm looking forward to have you alongside me next week for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. So, Melbourne is on pole position. And Mexico, yeah, this track can be quite difficult on tires. And not only tire wear, but tire temperatures as well can be quite an issue around the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez. With the temperatures getting quite high sometimes, so really have to manage those tires well in order to keep them alive through your stints. So tire management, of course, is always important, but keeping your tires in a good window for the temperature will be quite important as well tonight for the race here at Mexico. And strategy-wise, I'm not quite sure if it is a one-stop. I know tire wear is really high, so we might see some of these drivers leaning more towards a two-stop. Or it could just be a two-stop, I'm not too sure, in fact. But I do know that it will be interesting strategically. But 4 races to go in this championship, and 3 points separating D'Amico and Milan Diossi, who are starting alongside each other in P4 and P3. But Melvin, who is 17 points behind in the championship, he's got a real opportunity to close back in. But, well, starting from pole position, of course, it's the best position to start from. But some tracks, and this track is one example, it might not be the best position to start your race from, because the run towards turn 1 is absolutely massive. So everyone behind you will be able to get a slipstream and potentially put alongside going in towards the first couple of corners. And he might not come out on top after the first chicane. So we'll see how he's going to be able to manage that. And he might be put under pressure from not only Betan, but maybe his championship rivals in P3 and P4 as well. And in the Constructors' Championship, it is McLaren comfortably out on top, although 23 points ahead of Alpine and 26 ahead of RB. So it's definitely not over yet. But McLaren seem to have the best cars at the moment to score well tonight. In a few moments' time, we will get ready for the Mexican Grand Prix. At the moment, it looks like everyone is opting for the medium tire, unless some of the drivers are making some late changes. You never know. But will Melvin be able to convert his second pole position of the season towards a race win? Because I think his first pole position of the season was unable to convert it into a race win. Let me check it real quick as we pull up the standings. Yes, at the Austrian Grand Prix, he was on pole, but it was Milan Diossi who took his maiden win. And he finished in second. So for the McLaren driver's sake, I hope it's not a replica of that. And what can D'Amico do? Great momentum going in towards the break with his maiden win and scoring maximum points at Silverstone. And he and Milan Diossi have been on the podium in every single race for the past 4 races, having a very consistent run, it must be said. And the question is if that streak continues tonight here at Mexico. But it for sure will be a good fight. And it's time to go with the 5 red lights for the Mexican Grand Prix for round 8 of the season. And the lights are out very quickly indeed. And it's Melvin Everman who leads the way ahead of Betan. And he's able to pull clear ahead of the Mercedes. Then Milan Diossi and D'Amico putting into slipstream as well. And it's Betan putting to the inside as we go in towards turn 1. Will he be able to take the lead? And he's late on the brakes. And it's Melvin has to slot into second place behind. It is D'Amico and Milan Diossi fighting it out for P3 at the moment, but it's the Alpine who comes out on top of that fight, as Melbourne now fighting back with the Mercedes on the run towards turn 4. And he's going to be on the outside line, and there's contact between the two, and almost going off track is the McLaren, but now the inside line for the next corner, and he's able to pull ahead of the Mercedes again, and the lead that he lost is back in his hands, as it's 3 wide in the background with the Sauber of KDRDN and the Williams and the Red Bull, but it is all gone cleanly, it seems, for everyone. So a few drivers going wide through the S's, but it's Melbourne back in the lead of this race, ahead 3/10 ahead of Beton Dendemaiko and Milan Diossi in P3 and P4. So the top 4 have remained as they were, Slav in P5, and that is Ryan going side by side with the Red Bull driver, and I think there's contact and front wing damage for the McLaren driver. He does get past the Red Bull, but it has costed him his front right end plate. Which will cost him dearly in the middle sector as we go on to the start-finish straight. Look how close the Mercedes is to the back of Melbourne. He doesn't have DRS yet for this straight, but he does have the slipstream, and he's pulled to the inside once again, just like on the opening lap. But here comes the Maiko as well, the Alpine, and they're going to go 3 wide in towards turn 1 for the race lead, and they're side by side around the outside goes the Maiko for a double overtake. It's a beautiful move. What an amazing overtake by the Maiko, taking 2 cars at once and straight into the lead of this race, and our championship leader making a crucial move here on the second lap. And Melbourne and Beton have been caught napping down the start-finish straight, and without the use of DRS, the Maiko shoots into the lead of this race. That was magnificent from the Alpine. P4 on the grid has converted it into the race lead halfway through the second lap, with Melbourne, Beton and Milan Diossi all losing a position, and it's the McLaren of Ryan who also got quite a good start with 3 positions gained. Luke up 4 positions as well, and that is back up the inside of Slav, and Slav getting overtaken in the same corner. He got overtaken on the previous lap, and dropping down to P7 in the background. It is Alamico fighting it out with KDRDN, and there's front wing damage as well for the Aston Martin, unfortunately. As look at the Maiko, look at the pace he's got, breaking away by 9/10 of a second already towards Melbourne. But unfortunately for the Alpine, the ground driver is still within DRS range. And here comes Milan Diossi to the back of the Mercedes, and looking to take away that 3rd place, but in towards turn 1. Has to be later on the brakes as they go side by side. Bit of contact between the two, and the RB driver almost going around. But now on the exit, back within the slipstream, back with the DRS, but the Mercedes driver's got the DRS as well. Is he going to put it to the inside once again? Yes, he is. Later on the brakes, a little bit too late, shooting way too deep in towards the corner, but has the inside line for the next turn, and it is Beton getting forced off track there, and as he rejoins, finds himself staring at the back of the RB, and it's Milan Diossi moving into P3 of this race, and the top 3 in the championship are currently in positions 1, 2 and 3, but the gap now between Melbourne and Milan Diossi is 1.3 seconds, so he's got a bit of a job to do to close back up to the McLaren driver up ahead. Everyone is on the medium tire since the beginning of this race, and look at that, Milan Diossi 9/10 of a second. Will it be enough? It's going to be very close if he gets the DRS or not. If he doesn't, then he will be vulnerable compared to the Mercedes just behind, and the gap at the moment is 1.1 seconds. I don't think he's got the DRS. No, he hasn't, but I don't think Mercedes is close enough to really go for the move, so he shouldn't have to worry about that for now. As we go in towards turn 1, no, he doesn't. So Milan Diossi stays in P3, but he sees the gap growing once again towards our 2 race leaders. And that is going wide. Ryan coming out of turn 3 in a battle with Paco, who's going to try and go to the inside, potentially in towards turn 4, but choosing to stay behind. And following closely are the 2 Ripple drivers of Slav and Luke in P7 and P8, and it's also front wing damage there for Luke. So it seems like quite a few drivers have picked up some damage in the opening laps of this race, which will cost him on the tires as well, especially through these S's, where we really need the downforce. And that is behind Alamico getting a 3-second time penalty for corner cutting or track limits, and he himself got front wing damage as well. And just behind him is KDRDN. And that is an optimistic send to the inside, and almost going into the side of Luke, and there's contact I think on the exit, and going half around is the Aston Martin, but He has kept it pointing in the right direction, but look at the train forming behind him as we go on towards the start-finish straight. And KDRDN will be right underneath the rear wing of the Aston Martin. But will it be close enough to really go for the move? Going in towards turn 1 as Paco has finally found a way past Ryan. Going in towards turn 1, here comes the Kicksauber up the inside, but round the outside goes Alemeco, but they're now side by side through the next part of the first chicane, and that is a big moment on the exit, and it's 3 wide once again, and it's Francesco going for the double overtake, and he's up at the P9 with KTRDN now still on the inside into the braking zone, but later on the brakes for the Ferrari, and it's another double overtake in this race, and Francesco now finds himself in 9th place whilst they're still going at it behind him with KTRDN and Alemeco. A bit of contact on the exit once again, and well, this could end up very bad indeed. And that is going around is Slav in the Red Bull. What has happened to the Red Bull driver who's gone around? And his good qualifying has become undone as he finds himself facing the wrong direction, coming out of turn 7 and dropping all the way to the back and down in P19. And that is just not what you want to see, as there is a change of lead, and the reason is because the Maiko is putting into the pit lane, going on to lap 6, and that is quite an early pit stop, and that tells me we're definitely on a 2-stop tonight. And he's not the only one to go into the pit lane. Following him is Beton in the Mercedes, Moxie and the Grandada, as Slav picks up a 10-second time penalty for good measure and now becomes our first retirement, and that is 3 races in a row where the Red Bull driver has failed to finish, as Alemeco picks up a 10-second penalty for corner cutting. And what has happened then? Was he once again in a fight with KDRDN and must have gone across in towards turn 1, and that's up the inside goes Junkie Angle. Very aggressive indeed from the Mercedes, and now up at the P8. Not the great race so far for Alemeco, it seems, with front wing damage as well, and dropping another position now behind the Mercedes. So Melbourne now in the lead, 1.2 seconds ahead of Milan Diossi, and the question will be if they're gonna answer. And it's about to get even worse for Alemeco as he finds himself spun around in the S's as he tries to rejoin, has to led by the Alpine and the Mercedes, but it is Alemeco in turn 11 facing the wrong direction and dropping down to P16. I think he picked up even more front wing damage for good measure. As into the pit lane comes Kingsman and Shiny Diamond, and it's Melbourne and Milan Diossi staying out, so they're not responding to the pit stops of the Maiko and Beton on the previous lap, and Lakito and the Ferrari also making a pit stop. As the fight continues on here for P5 on track between Luke and Francesco, as Alemeco, no surprise, as he becomes our second retirement of this race. And we are down to 17 drivers. And the Maiko, he's now in P11. He's got clean air on these fresh set of hards. 9 seconds to be precise to the top 10. Which is trailed by Mighty Wombat. But Melvin and Milan DLC looking to extend, looking to stay out a bit longer. I'm not sure if it's going to be able to be a one-stop for them, but for now they are staying out. Yet for another lap as we go on to lap 8, and Milan DLC is getting a little bit closer towards Melvin, getting close to be within that 1 second window to get DRS. And look at this fight behind here. With Ryan, Luke, Francesco, KDRDN and Junkie Angle now trying to go for the move up the inside of the Kicksauber in towards turn 1. So it's going to have to be a late braking move. And he's going to try and go round the outside of turn 1. But he's not able to pull that off. And has to stay in P8 for now. But it looks like Luke will try and find a way past Ryan. Has to be on the outside as well. And it's later on the brakes from the McLaren. And it's a big train forming behind, and he's really starting to hold these drivers up behind him. And that's up the inside goes the Mercedes of Junkie Angle. In the background that is Moikoli almost spinning around on the exit. But Junkie Angle, another position gained, now ahead of KDRDN and looking to find a way past Francesco. in P6. As now Moikli and Mighty Wombat have closed in on this fight for P4, and surely Ryan will not be able to keep his position for another lap, as he's going to try and break the slipstream. KDRDN has had enough of it, and he's going to pull into the pit lane at the end of lap 8. Here comes Luke, and he's going to pull to the inside in towards turn 1. Junkie Angel's going to do the same with the McLaren, who's going all the way around the outside. But now he's going to have the outside line once again. And it's Luke who has the better line, but the better traction is there for Ryan. But it should be another DRS there for Luke. And he finally has got the job done and finds himself in P4. In the back part, that is Junkie Angel making contact with the McLaren. A little bit too late on the brakes. Once again, more contact on the exit. And now, with the switchback, we'll have the inside line for turn 6. As they go side by side on the exit. You really don't want to go side by side in towards the SS. And it's Francesco going round the outside. Contact between the two, both of them going off track. Moikoli says thank you very much. He gains a position to P7. And Ryan has gone in, well, only 2 sectors time from P4. Has fallen all the way down to P8. And I think it's about to be P9 as he drops behind Mighty Wombat as well. So clearly struggling at this stage of the race. As he has a massive moment there once again, coming out of turn 12. All of them still staying out, but now Ryan is going to pull into the pit lane, and I think this is going to be our 3rd retirement, and the answer is yes. As the McLaren driver not finishing this race, and which is not great news for McLaren in the Constructors' Championship fight. In the meantime, Leon Diossi, he has closed the gap towards Melbourne, and he's now within DRS range. So these two driving away at the front of the field. Now almost 4 seconds ahead of Paco in the Williams. And then almost a full 6 seconds towards Luke in the Ripple, due to all that fighting with Ryan. Has really created a gap between P3 and P4. And the gap from the Maiko to Mighty Wombat a few laps ago was 9 seconds. And now it's under 2 seconds. And he is about to close up to this train. Which is something he cannot need, really. Especially if they are going to stay out. Because then he will get held up behind all of these guys. And will start to lose time to Melvin and Milan Nielsen rather than gaining it. He's also got a 4.5 second gap towards Betan. So the Maiko space really quite handy. Into the pit lane comes Luke in the Red Bull. The rest of the train deciding to stay out, as the Maiko now will within DRS range. But it is not easy to make a move when the cars ahead have the DRS as well. But it doesn't look like Mighty Wombat is going to put up much of a fight, as the Alpine is going to go to the inside and goes up to P7 ahead of the Haas, and now right behind Moikoli in the Kick Sauber. As Luke will rejoin in P16. And I don't think he has replaced his front wing. And that is Betan with a 3 second time penalty. Noxie now as well. We're only on lap 11 of this race. Not even a third of the way through. And quite a few drivers already picking up 3 second time penalties. And the gap at the front remaining steady between Melvin and Milan Diossi. These two, you really don't want to fight at this stage, and I've got a feeling that these two are going to stretch it to a one-stop instead of a two-stop that the Maiko was going for, as he sends one up the inside of Moikoli, and that is another position gained. And only 2 drivers remain in this train, and then he will be back in clean air to close the gap further to Melvin and Milan Diossi, because he has to make up a full pit stop to the leading pair if he wants to stay within the fight for the race win. Up ahead, Francesco thinking about a move, but not going for it. Not quite close enough in towards turn 1. And on the exit, the Alpine will come knocking. He's only going to be on the outside, but it's an easy overtake for the Maiko up to P5. and now only behind Chunky Angle. And after that, it is around 10 seconds towards Melvin and Milan DLC. Look how close he is to the back of the Mercedes coming out of the S's, and he's going to get past. He's not even going to wait until the DRS straight, the start-finish straight, as he gets around the outside and now into P4 and finds himself back in clean air to chase after the top 3. Still staying out is Melvin, Milan and Paco, and everyone behind the Maiko as well, who started on the mediums. If you want to go for the one stop, really have to make these tires last in the first stint. You can already see the graining on the rear tires, so we're right on board with Mighty Wombat. And it will be similar for the rest of the medium drivers. Starting to feel the effects of the tire wear here as well, as we're on board with our race leader. And look at the gap. It was 6 seconds on the previous lap. It's down to 4 between Paco and the Maiko, as he is rapidly closing the gap towards the top 3. Question is, how long are these drivers going to be able to stretch this stint? Which lap will they pull in for a set of hard tires? And the lap is now. It is lap 13. Melvin and Milan DLC both into the pit lane, and this time neither of them pick up a 20-second time penalty for speeding. Already an improvement to a last race. Paco into pit lane as well, which means the Maiko is back in the lead of this race. Francesco is going to stay out on these mediums, who have definitely seen better days. But all the other medium drivers are into the pit lane as well to put on a set of hards. So now Beton is in P3 in the Mercedes, Noxy in P4. And remember, he started down in P19 and he finds himself in 4th place. So really quite a remarkable comeback drive so far. But he does have to make another pit stop. So he will eventually drop back. So Melvin then rejoins in P5. Milan DLC, important for him is that he has stayed within DRS range throughout the pit stop phase. KDRDN, who has made his pit stop 5 laps ago, is in 7th. Kingsman, who went for the undercut, has I say undercut 7 laps ago, is in P8, and Akito in P9 on the Ferrari on the set of mediums. But Paco, he has come out behind this entire train, which is really going to hurt him, and so is that, as he picks up a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings. But it's not going to be easy to get past all of these drivers, and he will start to lose time, as Francesco is going to pull into the pit lane finally. The Ferrari driver makes his scheduled pit stop to go on to the hards. He will have to do 21 laps on those, but given he has done 15 on the mediums, he should be able to make that work in his second stint. As Milan DLC really close to the back of Melvin, but it's important for these two that they're not going to be fighting in the second stint, because the Maiko will eventually pit, and then he will come out with the tire advantage, and he will be closing the gap towards his two championship rivals. As Paco has dispatched the Ferrari driver, and so has Shiny Diamond going up the inside. And Lakito has been on these mediums for 8 laps, and starting to feel the effects of tire wear already as he drops out of the top 10. Eight seconds is the gap at the front between the Maiko and Betan, but the question is, how long are they going to continue on these hards? I'm quite confident that they will be going on to another set of hards for their final stint. They've done 10 laps at the moment, and there's still 20 to go. So ideally they are going to stay out for around 5 more laps, as Lakito has picked up a 10-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane, as he goes on to his second pit stop, goes into a set of hards. In the meantime, Melvin gets ahead of Noxie and he's back into a podium position, but he's now got a car in between himself and Milan Diossi. And the RB driver will need to find a way past very, very soon if he wants to stay close to the McLaren driver. And through this section is where the Aston Martin really is losing a lot of time. And it's Melvin who's got 0.8 of a second already compared to the Aston Martin. But I think what Milan DLC is going to do is going to wait until the start finish straight. Then he's going to have DRS twice on Noxie. And then will slingshot his way back within DRS range of Melvin. But at the moment I think Noxie's got DRS still of Melvin as well. As we go on to lap 17, there is DRS, but Noxie's not going to fight this one, as Milan DLC is going to go through to P4. And the gap is 0.7 of a second, and he will have DRS once again on the second straight. So he should be able to close that gap once again towards Melvin, as Moikoli setting a fast lap race 17.6. In the meantime, it is Paco who is got ahead of Grandada, and now goes up to 7th place. But he's now 5.5 seconds behind KDRDN in the Kick Sauber. And to the inside goes Luke, but he's going to go into the back, almost there, of the Williams. And it's Shiny Diamond coming the worst of it, as he has been completely forced off track there by the Red Bull driver, dropping down a position behind Junkie Angle as well. A bit of an optimistic move there, must be said, from Luke, who has got a new front wing. But completely forcing Shiny Diamond out of his way, who loses 2 positions as a result. Junkie Angle in between the two in P11, but most importantly, hasn't got a 3-second time penalty yet. And there is his teammate in 2nd place, but not for long, as Melvin is going to pull to the inside, and he is going to take away that 2nd place. And once again, putting a car in between himself and Milan DLC, but the RB driver should have the DRS, and it shouldn't be a difficult pass on the Mercedes, as he goes sailing around the outside, and he finds himself overtaking the Mercedes as well, and following through with Melvin. And the gap towards the Maiko is just under 9 seconds. So around half a pit stop time, I think, here around Mexico. So you can definitely not count the Maiko out yet for the win, because he will be gaining a lot of time once he makes his final pit stop. And definitely going to be interesting to see. He's still continuing on as we go on to lap 19. But I don't think it will be long before he makes his final pit stop. Are we going to see a change of position between Melvin and Milan DLC? He's really close into the back of the McLaren, and he comes to the outside. And Milan DLC finally getting past the McLaren driver for the first time in this race. And Milan DLC now taking that 2nd place. And now they can work together, re-overtake each other every single lap, recharge the battery, and close that gap towards the Alpine together, and make it into a 2-way fight rather than a 3-way fight. Big fight going on here for P11 and P12. It's Moikole getting ahead of Kingsman to take P12, and he's now behind Shiny Diamond, who was really lost out due to that moment, and I think he's got front wing damage, or does he? No, actually doesn't, but he is really dropping behind these two, as that is Chunky Angle going through on the Grandada and the Mercedes. Back into the top 10 and up to P9. And there is the final pit stop for our race leader, Damaiko, going on to lap 20. He's done 14 laps on this set of hard tires. He will have to do 17 on this one. But he does have a 6 lap tire advantage, which will carry through the remainder of this race. As he comes out, will he be ahead of that little frame behind Luke? I think he will be. It's going to be close though, as Luke with the overspeed is going to pull to the inside. It's going to be a fight, and this could really hurt Damaiko's chances, but he's late on the brakes and goes around the outside to remain ahead of Luke. And he's in P7 now, and the gap towards the two race leaders is 13.6 seconds. So let's keep an eye out on that gap for the final 17 laps of this race. Moikli now up at the P11. He's got ahead of Shiny Diamond. And now 2 seconds behind the Grandada. As both Kingsman and Francesco, they are fighting as well in P13 and 14. With Mighty Wombat in P15. And it's Akito who's really struggled in this race so far. 12 seconds behind in P16 as the Williams of Kingsman picks up a 3-second time penalty. And that's not his first one of the race, as he is struggling with track limits. Into the pit lane go Beton and Noxie as well for their final pit stop. And there's a few more drivers outside of the top 10 who need to make at least one more pit stop, I think. And potentially KDRDN in the Kicksauber. Besides that, it's going to be a straight fight towards the end. Damaiko now 2 seconds behind the Williams. And the gap is still 13 seconds, so at the moment he's not doing enough to catch our two race leaders, and doing things like that sure doesn't help either, as he cuts across the S's. And he lost about a second almost, or not quite, but a few tenths of a second with that, having to lift off to avoid getting a warning or potentially a penalty. It's going to be a very difficult task for Damaiko to put himself back into the fight for the race win. He is getting very close to the back of Paco though, 1 second at the moment. And should be able to overtake going on to the next lap. Shiny Diamond into the pit lane, Mighty Wombat back into the top 10. And Betan, who is rejoined in 11th. And Betan was looking really strong in qualifying in the wet. But in the dry, under race conditions, appears to be struggling a little bit more. And currently finds himself outside the top 10. But with these new hard tires, should be able to fight his way back into the top 10. And score some decent points for Mercedes. His teammate in P6, looking to go to the end as well. And Junkie Angle, always consistent. Hasn't really been mentioned before this season, I think, but he has finished every single race so far inside the top 7. He was 7th at Melbourne, got a podium, P3 at Belgium, and then 7th place again at Kota, then 5th at Monaco, 4th at Austria, 6th at Spain, and 7th place 3 weeks ago at Silverstone. And once again looking to extend that streak of getting a top 7 in every single race, as he currently is running in 6th place and could potentially be P5 once KDRDN makes a pit stop, as his teammate in the background really trying to break the slipstream towards Noxie. Even though the gap is around 5 tenths of a second, shouldn't really have to worry about the Aston Martin trying to go for an optimistic send in towards turn 1. But these guys will want to go forward as well in the final few laps. So it won't be plain sailing for Junkie Angle. And he's also still under pressure from Luke, but Luke has been on these tires for 12 laps and has to do some tire saving if he wants to make it to the end. But at the moment he's doing just enough to stay within DRS range of Junkie Angle at least. But as I say that, makes a little bit of mistake of turn 7 there. And he's almost dropping out of DRS range. The Maiko in the meantime, he's found a way past Paco. The gap's now 1.5 towards KDRDM, but the Kick Sauber will pull into the pit lane. Going on to lap 25 and unfortunately picks up a 10-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Something we've seen so often for the season. And that is going to hurt his chances of getting a good result for Kick Sauber. Not only will he rejoin out of the top 10, but that 10-second time penalty basically limits his chances of getting a top 10 result. And it might only be P12 in the end. Peyton up at the P9. Ahead now of Mighty Wombat. And almost 3 seconds behind Moikoli. And Moikoli finds himself in a fight with Francesco for P7. And P8 and Luke. He has fallen out of DRS range of Junkie Angle. As the gap's now 1.6 and really starting to lose a lot now. Now he doesn't have the connection to the Mercedes, doesn't have the help of DRS, and will be falling into the clutches of Francesco and Moikoli quite soon. It is still remained very calm at the front between Milan Diossi and Melvin. 0.8 of a second, the Maiko 11 seconds behind. He's gained a little bit of time, but with 11 laps to go after this one, he needs to gain around a second a lap to be with the top 2. And with both of them having DRS, or well, Melvin at least, and Milan Diossi dragging the McLaren along, it's just the Maiko losing a couple of tenths of a second down these 2 DRS straights. And Francesco, he's got up to the back of the Red Bull, and he's found a way past as well to put his Ferrari into the top 6. And seemed to be quite a successful debut for the Ferrari. Neither of the full-time Ferrari drivers racing tonight here at Mexico. Both Profitox and Siet Lu unable. Profitox sitting V6 in the championship. He's got 1 podium to his name, which was at Barcelona, where he took a surprise pole position and almost won the race as well. But unfortunately for him, it was Milan Diossi who stole the show in the end. Another 3-second time penalty, and everyone behind Luke now got a time penalty. And Moikoli only doing 12 laps on the hards, but he's going back into the pit lane for a final stop. I thought he would be going to the end, like Melvin and Milan Diossi and a few others, but going for a 2-stop instead. And drops out in P14 as he exits the pit lane. And that is quite an interesting camera movement, haven't seen that before. Just ahead there of Kingsman, who will try to get ahead. And is later on the brakes going in towards turn 1. Tries to go all the way around the outside as they go side by side. But it's Moikoli with the tire advantage, able to stay in front. And Kingsman, he doesn't have the DRS. Moikoli, of course, he does have the Coro tires. But is able to stay ahead of the Williams driver. And that is 3-second time penalty for Francesco, unfortunately. Well, the good news for him is that almost everyone behind him got a penalty as well. Apart from Luke. But Luke, he is on 15 lap old hard tires. And is struggling at the moment to stay within DRS range of the Ferrari. With Beton and Noxie close behind. Looking to overtake on this straight. But with Luke still having the DRS. He is going to have to go for a late braking move. Takes a look on the inside, but won't be able to make it work with Luke then going a little bit deep. And now it's Beton trying to go for the switchback, trying to get a better exit. And a better run on the Red Bull as we're on the second straight now. But it's the inside line is there for Luke. The outside will be there for Beton, who's going to try and go for a beautiful switchback move there. Luke way too late on the brakes. Overshooting the corner completely. And it's a textbook switchback there from Beton, who takes away 7th place. Luke down to P8, and it will be a matter of time before Noxie gets past as well, and it still will be quite a strong comeback to ride for Noxie, because he will be in P8 once he gets ahead of Red Bull, and still there's more positions to be gained towards the end. .2 seconds is the gap now between Melvin and D'Amico, with 9 laps to go. He is gaining time, but I don't think it's going to be enough. He might get within 2 seconds on the final few laps, but I don't think he's going to be able to fully close the gap and have a real opportunity to try and overtake. It could get close though, especially if Dandiosi and Melvin will start fighting, because eventually they will. Because I doubt Melvin is going to settle for 2nd place after qualifying on pole position. So if they do start fighting in the final few laps, then that might be the opportunity for D'Amico to really close up and put himself in the fight. But at the moment all he has to do is just to put in those clean lap times and keep it within the white lines. And gain a few tenths here and there. As he's gained around 7 tenths of a second on this lap. Full 8 seconds ahead of Paco and Williams. Chunky Angle in P5. But his teammate right behind. Well, I say right behind, 2.5 seconds behind. But with a 7 lap tire advantage and a 3-second time penalty. But it is not going to be easy for Chunky Angle to remain in this 5th place. Especially when there's drivers behind who are on much fresher tires. Noxie now, will he go to the inside? Yes he will, Francesco on the outside, the Aston Martin makes contact with the Ferrari. He's now on the outside line for turn 5. And it's still Francesco holding it on the inside and way too deep goes the Aston Martin. And he's going to stay behind for now, and Francesco has defended successfully to remain in 7th place. The gap now towards Beton is 1.8 seconds. And Noxie's attempt there to overtake the Ferrari has not succeeded. And he's going to try again, but the good news is Francesco has dropped out of the DRS range towards Beton. And now he will be an easy target down the start-finish straight. And Luke still going strong on these 18 lap old hard tires. Has to do 6 more of them. And now finds himself back within the DRS range of both Noxie and Francesco. The gap's 4 tenths of a second going on to lap 30. And here comes, look at the overspeed there. And the Aston Martin breezing past to take 7th place. As Francesco drops to 8th. If it finishes like this, Bridan DLC will take the lead of the championship by 3 points. And Melvin, I think, will not close in. He will be 18 points behind Bridan DLC. And if it's like that, it's going to be a difficult task to gain 18 points in 3 races time, when a race win is only 16 points. I stand corrected. He will still be 17 points behind, of course, getting that point for pole position. But it's crucial for him to win tonight. If he wins tonight, he will definitely be back in contention, and it's going to be another three-way fight for the championship, going into the absolute finale of this season. And it will be 3 very interesting final races at Jeddah, Sao Paulo, and Yas Marina. But first, we've got 5 more laps in this race. The gap now towards the Maiko is 7 seconds. He is too far behind. Unless the top 2 start fighting, he will not be able to close that gap quick enough. So he just has to pray that something happens between these 2 at the front. As we go into lap 32 of 36, the gap's 0.8 of a second between Milan Diossi and Melvin. And 0.8 is definitely not enough for Melvin to make a move. He knows he has to be closer going on to the final lap, which I expect them to fight it out. I expect Melvin to wait until the final lap to make a move. You don't want to be leading going onto the final lap, because you start off that final lap with 2 DRS zones, and if you have the DRS for the first, you will have the DRS for the second DRS zone as well. And when you're leading, you will be very vulnerable indeed. So who knows if we might see some DRS games. Junkie Angle goes to the inside of Paco, and that is a position gained in the Mercedes up to P4. So the Williams has really lost a lot of time then in these past few laps. As the other Mercedes has closed up as well. And it could be a very successful night for the Mercedes boys, because P4 and P5 is definitely on the cards right now. With Beton only having a 3-second time penalty, and Luke has fallen well out of that window in P10. Still going strong on those 21 lap old hard tires. Might be getting close to punchy territory. But to be honest, not looking too bad on the rear end. You can definitely see the graining, but might be able to make it. As up ahead, that is KDRDN getting past Francesco for P8, but we know, of course, the Kick Sauber, he's got a 10-second time penalty, so there's no point in fighting for Francesco at the moment. As he almost runs into the back going in towards turn 1. Missed just the braking a little bit there. But all he needs to do is stay within 7 seconds of KDRDN. Kingsman has left the session in P14. Of course, he wasn't going to score points anyway, but he will lose these positions. But for 3 laps to go in this race, Milan Diossi and Melvin at the front ever since this second stint began. Separated now by 0.6 and 0.5 of a second down the start-finish straight. Melvin will wait to go for the move. The Maiko hasn't really gained any time on these past few laps. Now it's 6.6 between the two. He is not in this fight anymore. He made a beautiful move on the second lap to take away the lead after starting from P4. But strategy has failed him. Not for the first time this season. We saw that Monaco as well, where he took pole position but lost it to Melvin on the strategy. And tonight it is going to cost him dearly in the championship, especially if Milan Diossi wins, because then he will lose that championship and it will go back into the hands of the RB driver. But he is still under immense pressure from Melvin for these final 2 laps, and the battle is on. As the Maiko picks up a 3-second time penalty for good measure. Definitely eliminating him from this fight. And he will cruise home for a safe P3 finish, as he's 14 seconds ahead of Jungi Angle. Melvin once again gets close to around 0.3 of a second. Once again, deploying the battery a little bit, using the DRS to close in. But both of them will try to go in towards the final lap with a full battery, and both of them will try not to be the leading car going on to the final lap. Will Milan Diossi try some tactics to let the McLaren driver through and then re-overtake down the start-finish straight? Or will it be a straight fight? Will he play it fair and lead all the way through, going on to lap 36? It has all come down to this in this race. After 35 laps of racing, following each other through, not fighting each other, the battle begins on the final lap of the Mexican Grand Prix. The gap is 0.6 of a second between Milan Diossi and Melvin, and the RB driver is breaking the slipstream, trying to stay out of the clutches of the McLaren driver, but he's closing in. 0.3 of a second becomes 0.2 of a second. Milan Diossi doesn't defend. Melvin looks to the inside, but will not be able to make that move. But there's still another DRS zone upcoming. But the McLaren driver doesn't get the best exit there, and Milan Diossi, has he just done enough there? The gap's 0.3 of a second. Melvin is too far behind to go for the move. He's going to try and be late on the brakes, but he cannot be late enough to send one to the inside. There's of course still one DRS zone remaining, but that one isn't very long. It's not very effective, and it's very hard to follow through these S's. So Milan Diossi looks to be clear, looks to be safe from the McLaren driver, who's still pushing on, still close behind as we go on towards the final sector of this final lap. But he's 0.3 behind. He is opening the DRS one last time. Is it going to be a do or dive move in towards the hairpin? He's going to send one to the inside. There's contact between the two. Milan Diossi is going wide on the exit. They're side by side for the race lead on the final lap. Milan Diossi going to the inside, but here's the switchback for Melvin as they come out of the final corner. Who's going to be ahead? Melvin on the inside. Milan Diossi is going to be a photo finish, and Melvin wins! Melvin wins the Mexican Grand Prix. What a fight, what a finish! 41 thousandths of a second. It has all come down to the final corner of the final lap of this 36 lap race, and I'm sure Milan will have something to say about that as they fought it out through the final section of this lap. But Melvin in the end is victorious, and what a fight it was as they came out of the final corner side by side. It was a switchback from the McLaren, tucking in underneath, and Milan Diossi just could not get the traction down quick enough, and Melvin slipped up underneath and stole away that victory by less than 0.5 of a second. Wow, what a magnificent end to this race. And Milan Diossi will be furious, leading the majority of this race and losing it on the final stretch towards the finish line. And he is going to have to settle for second place unofficially. We'll find out later what he has to say about this, and if it's going to be if he will be reporting it or something like that. But at least it was a great fight to witness on track. But it's Melvin. He is victorious here at Mexico for round 8 and is doing great business in the championship, getting 17 points tonight. The maximum you can achieve. And I think he will gain 7 points towards the Maiko. So he should be 10 points behind now in the championship as we go for the final 3 races. Here are the final results though, with Melvin winning from pole position. Milan Diossi in second place, fought it all the way to the end, but just fell short. The Maiko in P3. The top 3 championship once again make up for the top 3 position in this race. Jungi Angle B4 with a great comeback. Noxy 19th on the grid to B5. What a comeback from him as well. With Paco P6, then Baton 7th, Francesco on 8th, Luke in 9th, and it's KDRDN in B10, picking up the final point. But well, what an end to this race, and it sure was a great spectacle, especially at the end. And that is the real fight. Not only a fight for the race win, but a fight in the championship, and it shows. And the DLC has said that he will report the incident, so we'll only know what the outcome will be going into next race at Saudi Arabia. But it sure was great to look at on this final lap of the race. A great fight between Melbourne, Emily and DLC, and for sure not the last fight of the season, as this championship will go down to the wire. 3 races to go this season. Next week, we return at Jeddah for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. After that, it's the Brazilian Grand Prix. And the week after that, we go for the season finale in Abu Dhabi. But it's been a good one tonight. And I'm sure you all enjoyed. I'm hoping you all enjoyed this as much as I did. And I'll be looking forward to see more fighting like that. And more interesting battles. And this championship fight continuing on in these last 3 races. Cannot wait to see what the rest of the season has in store for us. But that's it from me tonight. Hopefully Jamie will be back alongside me next week in Jeddah. But thank you all for tuning in to the stream. Hope you all enjoyed. And we'll see you guys very, very soon for round 9 of the season next week at Jeddah. So enjoy your evening and good night.